All right, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back. Welcome back to Game and Compute. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's a little simplistic, so bear with me. It's now spring of 2022. Yes, I'm confused about the day. I'm just a little off. But I want to talk about some combined topics. So, I want to talk about finance. I want to talk about motivation. I want to talk about business, work. And let's see. I mean, that's really the majority of it, but yeah. So, I'm writing this down. Sorry. So, business, work, income. So, motivation, finance, business, work, income, psychology, like the psychological and the spiritual aspects. So a lot of this is going to be kind of food for thought, but also based on some podcasts I've been listening to myself. So people may have heard of this podcast. It's very popular. It's called Living L'Chaim. Living L'Chaim. So living, like living spaces, and then L'Chaim, as in like Hebrew, like to life. So LCHAIM, Living L'Chaim. It's a YouTube channel. So if you look that up, there are a lot of topics that are videos, and there are topics such as what to do when you get into money trouble, what to do when someone dies, and how to cope, and the secret to truly becoming rich, how to deal with and confront guilt and shame, sales and job interview tactics. There's a lot of good stuff in here. But I want to talk about one that I came across that, was an episode that was quite helpful. And it was called "Why Are So Many Jews Rich?" And the thumbnail says wealth, and it has the Jewish star of David, and then it says Rabbi Daniel Lapin, sorry. Rabbi Daniel Lapin. I can't recall if he used a lot of Yiddish, but there was another one that I liked as well that was called Gevir Culture, with David Bashevkin. Sorry, I have trouble with these words, with the names, but I'll get it. I just haven't practiced. These are my first attempts at actually speaking them out loud, so I'll get it, especially once I dive way more into their details. So it says has very interesting takes on money. And then From School to Work, that's another episode. Money Halacha. Buying a home, tips for businesses, money lessons. They talk a lot about like tuition crisis with I guess yeshiva prices, and there's a lot of good topics. Now, I don't know if they started, I'm looking at it right now. So it looks like they started posting on YouTube 8 months ago. They've already got some videos that have, oh wow. The recent video, well, maybe these are older videos. I don't know. Most popular videos have 680K views, 548K views, and this was within the last 2 to 8 months. I saw one that was kind of like 7K or so. There's some music ones. They have like about 1,000 or less views. And then yeah. So I hope I did that justice. I'm sorry, guys. You guys know the drill. I record this when I'm probably not at my absolute best, but I feel like it's better to put in the recording. I feel like, this podcast isn't super polished. It's more like you call your chatty friend who's just got a lot to say, and you're on a drive home from work or on your drive home from running errands, and you just want to like tune in. Or I left you like a lengthy voice message and you're just tuning in, or just, logging in and listening to my long message over Voxer or some app where it's like you would go back and forth between like leaving like voice memos and things, but mine are just about an hour long sometimes. But I hope it's beneficial though. I mean, I hope it's not, I try to add value and not be too like stuffy or boring, but I try to be real about things, and sometimes, I'm just unloading my brain on certain topics that I never even got a chance to really process the topics. And so a lot of times when I'm recording, you guys are kind of hearing my firsthand processing about different topics. And so, I'm slow, and sometimes, when I'm driving to or from LA, I'll be recording because I'm like, well, I got like almost 3 hours where I'm going to be sitting in traffic, so I might as well, turn on record. And so I know the quality can be pretty poor sometimes, and I'm sometimes I might take a vape hit or something, and so I'm not maybe like too super sharp as I was when I was working, when I had, no vape, nothing in my system, and I was just, other than a lot of caffeine. Mostly the vaping kind of takes me down from the caffeine. I don't really like that energy when I'm not directly at work. And as much as this podcast in my mind is important and it's work, as in I take it seriously, it's kind of like that fun volunteer job that you do because you like washing puppies, or because you like, I don't know, gardening, or like something like that. It's like, yeah, I take it seriously. Yeah, I want to do it. I don't do it every single day. I do have other podcasts and other things that I work on too. So, I am spreading myself thin, and with the days getting longer, my spot in the shade at my regular space where I record, it doesn't get the shade until like probably about 5:30 instead of closer to 4:30 like it was before the time change. And so I'm, starting to get a little bit of exercise more, getting the sunlight instead of the workouts during my lunch breaks in the house when I'm working from home. I'm, getting out more in the sun and trying to take advantage of the, Southern California, nice warm weather, and get my vitamin D back under control, and get some fresh air and get out of that room that I've been working in since 8 o'clock this morning. I woke up closer to 6 this morning, And I started, actually, for people who, I don't know who cares about me saying this. So I'm not saying this to turn people on or turn people off. But I know religion is one of those topics that, it's not really expected for people to touch on. I'm not really talking about religion necessarily, or my own personal beliefs necessarily, but just kind of, this morning I did wake up and kind of went back to something from a religious field that I kind of just enjoy, just because I'm a nerd and I like to study things and learn about very complex things that I feel like is like a lifelong challenge to kind of learn. There's something about that appeals to me. That's why I like certain subjects, certain classes I used to enjoy, certain things I just like, never feeling like I'm done. Like, I like learning languages, and, I like learning about techie stuff and things that just change throughout life, that you always feel like you're kind of learning, and then you put it down for a while, maybe, then you come back to it and there's all this like new stuff. And so I like just delving into stuff that way. But yeah, I hope it's okay that, I'm doing stuff like this, but yeah, so I'm glad I wrote those topics down because I'm already struggling. I want to talk about the psychology and spiritual aspects of motivation, finance, business, work, income, those types of topics. Because I know if you're like me, sometimes you unfortunately experience low motivation at work. And that can be a very frustrating thing to have to deal with, right? Because you have options maybe, but sometimes it's just like, it's not that easy to just wake up and go get a paycheck. Like, honestly, sometimes that's not very appealing. It gets boring, it gets frustrating, it gets tiring, it gets just sometimes just not ideal, honestly. So, that can just make things challenging. And the way you can tell if your motivation isn't really too great is kind of just like how you feel. When you wake up, do you feel like, oh, I want to go to work, oh, I want to go to school? Or do you feel like, I need to snooze, I need to snooze, I need to snooze, I need to snooze, I need to snooze? Usually that is a sign. This is just my opinion, and I know everyone lives life differently, right? So just because I think this doesn't mean that it's like 100% accurate. But for myself, if I'm snoozing, that means that there's something going on that's making me not want to like get up right away. The common thing to go to is, okay, I'm still tired, I still need more rest, I still feel exhausted, I still don't feel refreshed enough to just get up right yet, and I don't necessarily need to maybe get up at that moment. I can push faster later on, and so I can lay here a little bit longer. But the weird thing about snoozing that we probably all know is that you're not really in a deep sleep. I mean, do you usually feel that much better after 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever? I think my snooze is set for like 8 minutes or something. Do you usually feel that much better? Now, I usually wake up at least almost 2 hours before my alarm. If not almost 3. I mean, before the time change, I was waking up at like 5 something. So, now it's 6 something. Like, I'm waking up and it's still a little bit dark. It's not quite light out yet, but then I wait about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes, and it's light again. And usually I'm not like thrilled to be awake that early, but I'm like, I have good ideas. That is usually where the majority of my creative energy is at like 6:30 in the morning, probably 6:30 to like 9 in the morning. Maybe even pushing like 10ish. But yeah, if I'm snoozing, why am I snoozing? You know, like, is that 8 minutes? Is that 10 minutes really gonna help me feel like way more refreshed? Because sometimes it's not just, the rest. Sometimes it's the thoughts that come with, like heavy thoughts that come with not wanting to get up right when your alarm goes off. Now, I find it easier to wake up well before my alarm. I set my alarm for like 7:55 a.m. You guys, I don't have to log into work till 8, and I'm awake at least an hour and a half before I need to start working. And so I rarely oversleep. I can think of one time this year when I was definitely struggling during that time. I don't remember exactly why, but I know that for a fact. And then I remember waking up to my alarm, or near my alarm. There have only been like maybe one or two times when I woke up to my alarm during this 2022 year. And then like probably even like within since even the Rona, since that hit in like 2020. I mean, I just don't tend to really sleep that long, sleep that late. So if I'm sleeping till almost 8 o'clock, even on a weekend, that's weird for me. Like, it's really rare. I think when I went out partying, not this past weekend, but the one before, I think I did sleep really late. I don't remember when, but then I do remember I woke up at like 9:30. So things like that, So yeah, snoozing, if that's the way to start the day. I mean, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying, looking at our routines can kind of tell us a lot about what's going on. So if you're trying to look for, how you feel or why you feel a certain way, one thing to just look at is how your actions are, how it is that we feel in the morning when we wake up. Are we sleeping good? Are we resting well? Are we waking up on time? Are we able to wake up on time and feel refreshed? Are we waking up multiple times during the night? Do we have trouble falling asleep the night before? Do we even fall asleep during when it's still night? Or are we falling asleep early morning, like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then waking up at like 5, and then getting tired around 6, and then having to wake up for work at like 8? And like what's it really looking like here? So motivation, as well as just the complexities of just like sleep. So motivation, what exactly is motivation even? I mean, I'm not looking it up in the dictionary, but motivation tends to be when you are, you have a mental energy, you have a, drive to want to do certain things. Your mindset feels good about it, and, you feel excited and kind of like hyped up about like talking about certain things surrounding what you're motivated towards. And, versus like, if you wake up and you're like, oh God, like, I don't want to start the day yet. And then you have to start your day. And then you're just like, oh, I wish I was in bed. Like, how many people do you know that before the Rona, and I can count I'd say almost everybody I know thinks like this. But before the Rona, before so many people were working from home, how many people did you hear saying, I wish I worked from home, it was so much easier? Or I wish I didn't have to work and I could just like lay in bed all day, and like, or people who just during their weekends, that's, you would talk to like your coworker friends and be like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And there are some coworkers that literally just like sleep all weekend. Like, they don't get dressed, they don't get out of bed, they just order Uber Eats, and like, I think, yeah, maybe every so often, like, I'll have like a day or a weekend where I'm just like, I'm just gonna veg, like, but I'm like doing something, like a little bit, like I'm entertaining myself and things. I'm not, but usually it's like, yeah, that's kind of like a recovery type weekend. But I usually get more out of doing a little bit of something, at least. Even if it's just like taking a walk for like an hour, or taking the hike, or going to the gym for a couple hours, or like whatever, like something. So when you don't feel that way when you wake up and you don't feel like, okay, my alarm went off, it's time to get up. Because I don't set my alarm to wake me up. I set my alarm to tell me when to log into work because I'm already awake. So that's kind of something to see too. If you notice that you always wake up early before your alarm versus if you notice that you are always woken up by your alarm, I feel like when you're woken up by your alarm, that's almost your body telling you that you need more sleep. That's kind of the way I see it. Because especially, I don't know, or just seeing how long you naturally sleep without an alarm, maybe on a weekend or a day when you're not working. You don't want to do that like on a work day and then oversleep. But, motivation is a tricky thing because it's a very psychological type of experience. It's a lot about mindset, right? Because if you think about it, like I'll talk about my job, right? Thankfully, since I've started at this company in 2020, sorry, I had to think about it. I downgraded the stress in my life from working at a place that was so, like, I downgraded the obvious stress. So the obvious stress was that I was working in crisis-related support sites, like, almost every day there was a crisis of some form that would be unexpected. You don't know who it's going to be. You don't know why it's gonna where it's going to come from, what time of day. So you kind of always had to be on your A game, but you knew once you had a crisis that was assigned to you, a crisis situation that was assigned to you to help this person, basically that was going to be hours out of your day. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I love helping people or else I wouldn't have been in a job like that. And the stress of it, yeah, it stressed me out, but the things that stressed me out were just like, mostly all like at the beginning thinking, okay, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this under pressure because it's a really serious situation. And what if I don't know what to do? But we had a good team. We had great supervisors. I got great training. I got, a lot of experience with a lot of different people. And I got good enough at the job that, I was getting some form of like recognition for it. Like, not like in a braggy way, but like, it wasn't, nobody was like I didn't feel like people were feeling like I sucked. Like I feel like the clients I worked with all really liked me working with them. The staff I worked with, we were friends and we would go out a lot and stuff. And, it was a job where it was like, it was very likable, but at the same time it was stressful, but there was also enough support, but also it was the kind of job where you never really either you would usually have to trade your quality of work, so quality of work with the clients to get the paperwork done, or do kind of like a messy job on the paperwork, do it a little bit late, get like the bare minimum and then fill it all in later, or you would have to work extra hours unapproved to actually get the work done, the quality that is, expected. And there's kind of like a good enough level. My focus was mostly on the client care. And I focused enough on the paperwork to make it so that people could get what they needed when they needed it. And that I wasn't at risk of losing my job because of, poor quality paperwork. Because, documentation is super important. I'm not saying I never made any mistakes. There were things that I forgot or that were important that I just kind of, like for example, we weren't supposed to copy and paste certain things. And I remember I had talked to one client maybe like 2 consecutive days, and leading up to like a crisis situation, I was like trying to fill in the note for that day, and I was rushed. I had so much stuff to do. So I went to the note from the previous day, copied and pasted, and I knew we weren't supposed to copy paste, but I put at the very bottom of the note, like I put like a bunch of dotted lines, and then I put copy pasted from whatever note, delete. And then I guess I quickly just like saved the note and everything, and then just forgot about it, right? And then months later, this client came up with a very serious situation. And going back, they go back and review all the notes, like the whole company does. And so they were looking at all my notes. I hadn't worked with this client on like a regular basis, but like I knew them. I think I did their intake, and I knew them from groups maybe. And then I happened to be the person meeting with them for that crisis, but then there were multiple crises after that situation, and so my notes got pulled as well as the notes from the person who was their regular provider. So basically they were reviewing all of our notes, and then they found that note for me that had this like copied and pasted like it, but my intention was literally to like delete it, but like I was working so fast, like I literally didn't even think to even backtrack. Like we had an option to go in and have the lady up front like call somebody to open up a note so we could edit it, and it was just this whole process, but it would have been possible to edit it. But I just totally forgot and just never went back, and then at that point it was like way too late. So yeah, I say all that to say the job was super stressful. It was hard to feel like you were always doing good, and you're always kind of worried because you knew, okay, my paperwork's late. Okay, now I can't go out to dinner with my friends after work tonight because I got to work some overtime to finish all the notes because I had an extra assessment that I couldn't do because this other thing happened. There's always something. But it was fun in a lot of ways. Like I didn't like the heartbreak and stress of the people that were super stressed out all the time, but I did like the work that we did. I did feel that we did really good work. I did feel that we were really helping people. But what I'm trying to say is the job that I went into next after that point, where I'm currently at, is a good fit, as in we don't have that kind of stress. But the unexpected type of stress that we get is not feeling like we have too much support when we have, not necessarily a crisis, but when we have, a lot of work to do that maybe is unexpected stuff. Not feeling like we really have time or energy or really a lot of willpower to just sit in front of like countless amounts of paperwork and just like do the same thing that's written in all the notes, but now I have to put it in all these little neat boxes and put dates for 6 months of when I'm going to update this thing. Like, it can be hard to really know, what's going to be the most helpful thing. As far as your motivation levels. But for me, stress isn't always demotivating. It's demotivating when it's too consistent, like all the time, and when it's too much, like when there's too much and then there's no relief in sight of it, and there's no one who's really taking it seriously to try to like support and help out the situation, to like give an end date to the stress. It's like, okay, if you guys just hang in there one more week, we know we have a lot of stuff and you guys might be doing a lot of overtime, but I mean, it's only one more week, versus like, how long are we going to be having to work extra during our free time? Because at a point, it's like the money isn't motivating, right? The money isn't motivating at some point. Now, I feel like my job is easy to get my mindset to be motivated because I can think about the people that I'm helping and think about, okay, if I can just push and just get some coffee and just, hydrate and get some breakfast and just call this person that I know needs some support with this thing, or like send somebody this other support website, or like send food to this person, or like something like that, where it's just like, you're helping somebody. So even when you're having a hard day, it's a little bit easier than just like if you were doing something that you just felt like I'm literally like, I have a friend, for example, that had this job. He worked for this company. Let's say it was like an Amazon packing type. I don't know if it was really Amazon. Like it was a company that packed and shipped. I don't know if it was construction parts or like kind of like how Home Depot has like, home repair and like construction type of products to purchase. But the section he was working in was bolts, nuts, nails, screws. Poor guy. And he would literally have to count them out to put in little baggies that were going to get mailed. And he was like, you don't even count them just once. Like, you count them multiple times. And that was all he did every day, was counting little thingies. So it would be like, okay, this person needs some like octagonal, I don't know what they're called, some like octagonal bolts or washers and washers, they need like 1,000 washers and 500 bolts, and he'd have to freaking count that stuff out. And I laugh not because of his experience that was not fun, but I laugh because it's like, wow, I don't know how, I can motivate myself to do my job, because even when I'm having low days or just low energy or didn't sleep good or just stressed out, at least I'm like, okay, at least I'm doing something productive for the community. I'm doing something helpful in the city. Even if I only do one thing today and my game is off and I'm just totally just like sitting and staring at paperwork and just can't even like get it together with like severe brain fog or something, at least I'm freaking not just like counting things all day, every day. Like, how long can a person keep a job like that? And it's like, it just doesn't sound fun. I mean, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, maybe if it paid like super good, but it's like, you can't even really like listen to anything in the background, like when we're documenting, because we're working from home most of the time, we can type and you can kind of listen to stuff in the background. They're like, we're on hold a lot, so you can kind of listen to your own stuff in the background. Then when someone finally answers, you just kind of like pick up, But yeah, we can motivate ourselves. Like, if you like doing that kind of work, you can motivate towards it. But I don't know how you motivate towards something you don't like. And especially if it's just like, like, I don't know, that just sounds like a pain. Like, I don't think I could really do that, honestly. But I mean, that's what this guy was doing. And he didn't keep the job long. He hated it, obviously, But sometimes it's like, a job is a job. I get it. I'm not one to try and discourage people from doing whatever it is they've got to do to pay their bills. But I know that it's not always easy. And even when your job is motivating, like, I have a motivating job, I wish I got paid more, but it pays okay. Like, it pays enough for me to like get my bills paid. Like, I'm not like at risk of like being out on the street, fortunately, nothing like that. So it's like, I can survive. And even with inflation, like, I drive less. I gave myself a $20 quota for gas. I mean, I'm pretty much going to be going over, but I mean, a $20 quota for gas per week, because like, we're over $6 over here right now. So I'm like, shoot. So it's just a pain. But I'm like, so I'm going to a lot less places. I'm home a lot more. Or right around near my house a whole lot more. I've mentioned I share with people, just to keep the rent cheap and so that I can actually like do what I want to do. But I just I think it's important to talk about motivation, because it ebbs and flows, right? Like, you have high points of motivation, you're going to have low points of motivation, and then just kind of like the days where you just kind of wake up and just do your thing and you don't really think too much about it. But I know, at least for myself, I've noticed that my motivation has been so low, and for so long, mostly due to the Rona and trying to adjust to working at home. Like, I mentioned a lot of people say, oh, I wish I could work from home so you can just wake up in your PJs, and like that is nice that you don't have to like look a certain part or like comb your hair all the time and like get dressed all the time, and like you can eat whenever, you can do laundry on your breaks, you can, I put some food in the oven. Like, I wasn't really cooking, it was just like frozen big ziti or something and just like sticking in the oven, like stuff you couldn't really do if you were like on a job somewhere. I just do stuff, that, just it saves a little bit more time, saves gas money. So that is worth it. But, I always had good work relationships with the clients and with the staff. And so, I really, miss that. I don't miss the drive, but part of me misses the drive because I like listening to music and singing along, and like, I'm not too comfortable with my singing, so I don't really do it in the house with other people there. Like, that would be obnoxious. Like, I don't even like listening to myself when I record music sometimes, and I don't even like listening to myself sing. So I don't think I'm that good of a singer. But whatever, I do it because it's fun. But if you're noticing that your motivation is low, that's normal. That's okay. If the motivation being low gets in the way of you meeting your work quotas when before you were able to do it almost seemingly easily because you didn't have to think about it, because it wasn't like such a negative chore, and you felt fine about it, you felt like you were able to just do it even if you were going through the motions. That's the difference with low motivation, is that when you get low motivation, sometimes on top of it can be depression. It can appear like it, or can lead to depression too, because it's like nobody wants to wake up and do something that you feel like you have to do that you don't want to do. So you feel like you have to do something, you don't want to do that thing. You have to wake up to do it. You're tired, you're groggy. You gotta spend resources to go do this thing to make money so you can get more resources. It's like this weird combination of things that, just the cycle of it alone is already just too much for a lot of people to really handle easily. And it can be not fun. And so you can wake up, go to work, start work. Your motivation can change during the day, and sometimes it changes. Like, for a lot of people, coffee's a little more motivating. It's a stimulant. Like, I cut out coffee for a pretty long time, or just started doing like 1 or 2 gulps, and I noticed how hard it was for me to really kind of get it together. I was like, wow, this is intense. And I mentioned vaping before too. And it's like, when I was already having like an intense time, that didn't help my energy kind of perk up. Like, I wasn't like stoned at work, obviously, but it's like, like, even if it's like after work, and here it's legal, but it's like, even if it's like after work, sometimes you want to like do something different. So that's just one thing I mentioned. But all this is going to impact your finances, right? And your comfort. So, a lot of us, when we have low motivation, we have options that we're told from work, right? Take PTO. If you get PTO, because not everybody's days off are paid. We get paid time off. So I feel lucky about that. I think right now I have about 96 hours worth that I can take. I think I had like 124 sometime earlier this year, or later last year or something. I had a lot of days where I could take off, and I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, taking days off isn't always free. It's for some people, they have to, pay out of pocket or whatever, it's like, it just costs sometimes. And so sometimes it's not even easy just to take days off. I mean, for me, it's not easy to take days off due to like certain deadlines. So like we have monthly deadlines. We're having a 30-day marker come up on like April 3rd or so. Or April 2nd, I guess. We're having different clients have different deadlines for different things. So depending when you enroll them, everything is due again in like 6 months. You do like an evaluation every 6 months. One of the evaluations last year, up until the beginning of 2022, we were doing one of the evaluations every 3 months, and then the other one we would do every 6 months. So now they're both due every 6 months. So right now my goal is to get everybody on track, because I can do them early and just get everybody on track with the day that I do it, and update all the paperwork on the same day so that everything's going to be due, like all the major paperwork's going to be due at the same time. Like both assessments are going to be due at the same time instead of like spread out like 2, 3, 4 months or whatever. But some days, sometimes it's hard to find out, because nobody wants to feel like that. Nobody wants to wake up and feel like I don't want to do this. I feel like I don't want to have to do this. And it's one thing if it's one day. It's one thing even if it's like 1 week. But when it starts to be just like week after week after week, and you're just like, man, like it's hard to push yourself. And even when you can push yourself, because you can, but even when you can push yourself, it doesn't feel better, to push through like grogginess and brain fog and irritability and stuff, to just like push through it. And then it also doesn't feel better to not only push through it, but when you're trying hard and then you're not meeting like your quotas for work. Like we have to log a certain amount of services, a certain type of services, a certain number of minutes doing certain things, to add up to another certain number to reach productivity. We all know how these things work, right? And up until more recently, I haven't been low on productivity. I mean, I have like in the beginnings of things when I was like figuring it out, but then I figured out a system and I'm like, well, now I know how to meet productivity. It's like if I'm not getting calls or whatever, I can research stuff out. I can send resources. I can like connect with other community sites and just like start calling up places and finding out like what they're about and what they do and how they can help. Like there's plenty of stuff I can do for work. And I can work and I can love it and I enjoy it and it's a good time and it's a lot of fun. But, I don't always feel motivated to do it. And, nobody wants to get in trouble, because when you start not being able to do your job and then you feel like, okay, I'm going to get in trouble if somebody finds out I'm not doing this right. Or if you're slacking or, just doing something in a way that you're not supposed to do it. That's not a good idea. And then as far as finance, I mean, that could cut into your paycheck if you get paid commission or if you have to take a bunch of PTO and you're, not getting paid for it. Personal finance is, a challenge in itself to try to manage. For most of us, I mean, some of us have it down and we kind of like know how to do it, and others struggle a lot. And so it can be hard when you have like financial burdens or a financial emergency comes up or something. Or, if you're like me, and I think a lot of people are like this, I might do some impulsive kind of thing that might lead to some other, situation. So I remember in the past, I had a hard time managing my stress levels having roommates and housemates, rather. Like I wasn't sharing a bedroom, but I was sharing a house, and it was like, I couldn't feel comfortable going out to cook when I wanted to because I didn't want to talk to these people because I would get annoyed and just wanted to be in my head. And then they wanted to have these deep conversations about their breakups and things, and I was like, I just don't want to deal with this. So it actually became stressful because I was like trying to save money by cooking at home, but I felt I couldn't cook at home because these people kept on just like bothering me, like, and I never told them. I was like, I felt like, okay, it's rude to tell them that they're being obnoxious. And so I didn't want to be rude. And so for me not being rude, I just let them do it. And then that led to me being stressed. And then that led to me just avoiding it because I was stressed having to like interact with them when I was already kind of like wiped for the day. You know, mind you, I'm doing therapy all day. I'm not trying to talk to some random roommate about their life issues where it's like, dude, like, you're not my client and I can't really like professionally help you. Anyways, I can point you in the right direction, but you know, after a while it gets to a point where it's like inappropriate with the boundary parts, and it's just like, I don't really want to like hear, like, people don't ask, hey, can I talk to you about this, or like whatever. They just start, you know, sometimes just unloading, and it can be a little stressful if that's what you deal with all day. It's like, okay, like, I don't want to deal with more negative, you know, this is my free time. I don't want to like have to sit and be compassionate and listening, and like, you know, I did that already for people who I love helping, and I'm like, I'm done for now, like, I don't really want to do it. But I didn't feel like I could say that, and so I said nothing. And I used to walk around with headphones in, and sometimes people just didn't get the point, and then they'd be like, oh, like, you're being rude. I see you're like ignoring me because you're putting in headphones or whatever. It's like, who cares? Like, yeah, you're annoying me, so I'm ignoring you. Like, that's what I would do, but I would never say a thing. I would never like mention it. And then it got to a point where it wasn't stressful. Like, they weren't really like badgering me like that about it, but like, I've had a couple people make a couple comments about me wearing headphones. And then I would just like wear them, and then I would I would just have the headphones in, or just avoid. It led me also to feel like a lot more often than I would want, I had to avoid cooking at home, making cheaper meals, and avoid preparing like that, and having to spend more money on takeout and stuff like that. And that wasn't healthy. You know, it's not like, I mean, takeout can be healthy, but it's like, you know, if you want like something quick where you don't have to get out of the car, then you're like fast food, and it's like, oh my gosh. So it can become really, really a pain when you don't eat it in the house and you don't cook. It can get really expensive and really unhealthy really fast. And, you know, that impacts your mood, that impacts your, you know, your health, that impacts kind of your energy. And then the next day, it's like you might feel groggy, or you might wake up because your stomach feels strange because of that McDonald's burger, or you know, just different things that might impact you. You might have different experiences like that. And then it just starts feeling annoying. So I would have experiences like that where it's like, I'm trying to save money. And then that would lead to kind of, you know, not being able to save the money would lead me to go way off of my financial track. And this is a while back, and I would be like, okay, well, screw this. I'm spending so much money that, you know, I just need to get out. Like, I get to a point where I'm like, I just need to get out of here. I just need to like spend a couple days like out away, you know, over near my, you know, I just need to go somewhere. Like, there's certain cities or places in nature and spots where I like to go if I'm traveling by myself or something. And so I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go to this like hiking trail over in like up in like Ontario, like near Ontario Mills or whatever, like up at that hiking trail, and, you know, get the hotel near there. And then, you know, hotels aren't cheap. So then you're spending like, back then it wasn't like $150 a night or whatever. It was like, because I would do cheap hotel motel type things. I just look for the ones with like a microwave and mini fridge, and I was good, you know, as long as I had my space and I didn't have to share it with anybody, and I could microwave my little food and, you know, even just like crash in the room and just like chill there for a couple nights or whatever, and just get away from people that I didn't want to be around, the ones I lived with anyways. And so that would, you know, I would take out like a payday loan to do something like that. And then it was like, you know, it was stuff like that. There was like, you know, there can be a cycle that you get into. And it wasn't like, oh yeah, every weekend I'm at a hotel. But it's like, if it's every month or every paycheck, if you're paid twice a month, or every, you know, every once a month or whatever, if I was going on like these like 3-4 day, you know, 2-3-4 day kind of like get out of the house, sleep somewhere else kind of things, just because I wanted to be alone, but I couldn't afford it because I couldn't save the money, because I couldn't deal with the stress levels of having to, you know, deal with these people that I didn't want to be around, and then, you know, just things like that. So it's like, I'm saying all that to say, you know, when it comes to personal finance, some of us don't make enough money. Let's be real. Some of us, if you even took all the bills off the table, like all of the, you know, if you have like credit cards and all those things coming out of your check, say if you got your whole paycheck, right? Some people, even when they get their whole paycheck for every month, they can't live within those means. And I'm just saying, like, some people honestly legit don't make enough money for where they live or whatever the situation may be. Or if you have like kids or a lot of other expensive like things that just add up, right? So I can't really just say, okay, like you have to save or whatever. Like for some people, it's just, you know, you're already trying to make ends meet. And even if you don't have like debt and other things that are just like chomping away at your paycheck, you know, like if you don't have loans, student loans, credit cards, payday loans, installment loans, all kinds of different, you know, mortgage, you know, stuff that you just have to pay every month. Like, but if you do have all that stuff that you have to pay every month, and if some of that is the reason why you're not able to get things on track, that's different than not making enough money even without the debt, right? Those are two different things in my opinion. And I mean, it's all, yeah, that kind of comes into the income too. But I mean, like, income is different than personal finance in a lot of ways. Like, your income, I mean, I guess you can get it from, you know, something more passive where you're not trading exactly time for money. Like, for example, if you have investments that are like showing growth and like you're having like profits coming in from other things that are just like, you're not necessarily like putting in direct hours, but maybe you're putting in money and it's growing in certain areas for certain reasons or whatever. But if you can't really get your hands on that money, or if that money never comes into your own pocket, if it has to sit in an account somewhere, that might be a little bit different. Like, it's something to consider that you have and to like pay attention to and to, you know about, but you might not have access to it, right? So you couldn't really use it to like pay your bills depending where the money is, like what it is, you know. Work in business, I mean, your job, I feel like work, a lot of times that's who you work for. If you have a business of your own, or trying to start one, you know, here we talk a lot about side hustles and side businesses and things like that. But if you have your own, or you're trying to start your own, I find, honestly, this is something I'm realizing, and I feel like I'm too old to be realizing this, but I'm kind of slow with stuff sometimes. I feel like, for me, one of the most motivating things I find is creativity. I don't find it burdensome. I don't find it annoying. I don't find it, you know, hard to cope with. It actually makes me feel better. I like making stuff and fixing stuff, and you know, usually that makes me feel a lot better once I've participated in just kind of like something creative. I mean, that's what I like about these podcasts. Like, I feel like, you know, okay, I did something, you know, this was fun. I kind of got to upload something today, something that I didn't know. Like, when I start talking, sometimes I don't know where I'm actually going with this. Like, you know, I'll try my best to kind of like set a mini outline, but sometimes it's just me like rehashing the past, or just like thinking out loud about certain things that, you know, that I noticed that people might find helpful, just different ways to think about something. And so, all that being said, like, you know, when the psychology and spirituality comes into, you know, motivation, finance, that type of thing, a lot of times it's coming from, you know, your mindset. And I was Lappin. What's his first name? Sorry. Lappin. That's not him. Sorry, I'm looking for that video I just mentioned. Rabbi Daniel. I was gonna say David. The other guy was David, and this guy is Daniel. So Rabbi Daniel Lappin, was talking in one of his books about motivation. He was talking about let me get the name of the book. I don't know if it was on the podcast or in his book. I hope this doesn't shut things off. Business Secrets from the Bible. He was speaking of business secrets from the Bible. And, you know, the reason why that came up was because they were studying the, you know, just like this I don't know if you call it like a phenomena or whatever phenomena. I don't know which one's plural anymore. I'm sorry. But I don't know if that's even what it's called. But basically, there's this kind of thing that they've noticed in finance about, you know, a lot of Fortune 500s being owned by Jewish people, you know, and them, you know, talking in history about, like, you know, Jewish people being able to come from, you know, a certain, you know, socioeconomic status to like a higher one. That is something that's seen in that group. Like, I'm not saying, and they weren't saying that all Jewish people are rich or anything like that. But they were just saying there is a trend, right? There's a trend. And they were trying to ask, like, why? And then some people were saying, okay, maybe it's a religious thing because of, you know, studies, because of, maybe it's something cultural because of, like, you know, the family sizes and the emphasis on families. And, you know, I would say, I mean, most of the Jewish people I know, it's interesting. It's okay. So I find this as something interesting because I was raised more in a Christian faith. Definitely a Christian faith that really, really admired Judaism. And I was definitely around a lot of kids that were not, you know, of the same religion that my family was when I was growing up. But I was socialized around a lot of people who were the same religion as my family. And, you know, I would just say one thing I noticed, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is because of a religious thing, because I don't know. I really don't know. But, or even like a spiritual thing, but, I was reflecting a lot, you know, on like different things, like, you know, that I do have a lot of fears of kind of moving forward because of like how the PhD program didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And then it's kind of hard to kind of just like take those giant leaps, you know, because I got knocked down pretty hard from pretty high up. I mean, I'm not saying like as a status high up. I just mean like I was pretty far along to my goal. It's not like it happened in the first 6 months or the first year. It was like I was a little past my third year, and I wasn't doing that bad, but I also came to a realization later in life that I just wasn't balancing things the way I needed to, and I was basically at a point where I had run myself so ragged that even when I slept and then I woke up again, I literally felt like, so sorry, my I reached my hour, so it cut off. But yeah, I wasn't too far in. Basically I was trying to say that, even when I had slept, I felt like I hadn't slept at all. And I know that I had gone to sleep with at least 6 to 8 hours of rest to get. But I would wake up feeling not refreshed, not ready to go, like, just so overwhelmed, with stress, and maybe TMI, but I mean, I remember those years were like the years when, I got, pretty bad, like, menstrual cramps, but I think, like, that was normal in my life, but during that time, it was, like, bad enough that I was, like, concerned. I'm like, this is worse, and I was like, I didn't think it could get any worse, because it was pretty bad already, and it was, like, far worse. So I was just like, man, like, it would be, like, pain that I would feel, like, in my hands and in my spine and, like, in so many different places. It was so much worse, and I couldn't even, like, hardly stay in school. Like, there were times where I had to miss classes because I was like, wow, this is, like, bad. And it was, like, concerning, but did I see a doctor about any of this? No. Did I talk to anybody about this? No. Did I take days off? No, like a couple days off or anything? No. I just went to class every day, did things every day. I didn't take mental health breaks. I didn't balance things. And what I was trying to say overall, the reason why I'm mentioning that whole lengthy story is that, I was wondering, about that concept of balance, because when I was part of, a religion, like when I was pretty, like, dedicated to, like, helping out in it and doing a lot of things in it, I did really learn how to help people, how to be there for people. I learned a lot of good, valuable skills that I carry into work, and I really got into liking to serve in the community and that kind of thing. And so I've found the passion for it, and, that's what I get paid to do, which is great. But I probably wouldn't have found that without church, because, like, I was from a religion where, we didn't have, like, certain times of the weekend were just, like, shut off from doing, like, anything that wasn't related to the religion, the community, like community service, or, like, nature. If it was something outside of those categories, like going to sports games, going to concerts, going to movies, watching television, watching sports, going, just about anything that most people do on the weekends, we weren't allowed to do for a lot of the weekend, Friday night to Saturday night, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown more specifically, but we weren't Jewish, right? But like I mentioned, like, we did adhere to some of the Jewish traditions in a more casual way than a very Orthodox person would, but probably more similarly to someone who's kind of like, maybe like Reform, like a little bit observant, but maybe more like flexible with things, and kind of more modern about a lot of things too. But yeah, our Christian religion wasn't super modern compared to like other denominations. I feel like we were like stuck in like a time warp where it's like we just never moved forward to like value technology the way that a lot of the world does. Like value it, but in a way that we would just disconnect from a lot of stuff. And that, even I've talked about it before, where it's like it's almost unheard of to like go without internet for a whole day, or without your smartphone for a whole day, and like I mean, I can go, it really just helps balance my life, but it is kind of like strange a little bit. But I can do things like that, and I do feel like it helps me rebalance things, but also because I was raised in an environment where we did that. And we weren't even very strict compared to like Orthodox Judaism or like ultra Orthodox or like anything like that. Like we weren't Jewish, and we weren't that strict, but I did find that when I started doing poorly at things in life, those were usually the times when I wasn't balancing things and I wasn't taking that, Sabbath break. That really helped me kind of balance my life out. Because I had the one thing, which was one time during the week where I would just disconnect from so many things. But all of that disconnection helped me really like revive and reflect on a lot of stuff that maybe I wouldn't have had time for during the week, and then connect with people, interact with people I grew up with, people that I really enjoyed being with often in the first place. It was just overall a pretty good experience. And so, I had negative experiences involved too, related mostly to like people being judgmental and just like people just couldn't really stay in their lane too well. So some of the social experiences, even though overall for me it was fine, but I think it was more like the fear of people being judgmental and me knowing about it, or getting judged harshly on something, that was maybe like something that ruined my reputation or anything like that, or my family or friends' reputation, something like that. Like, it wasn't a good idea to have a bad reputation and to be running around not following the rules in that denomination. So there were certain things where I was like, well, I know I don't do these things, but I don't want to get caught, kind of thing. That was common. That was just the culture of it, was that a lot of people felt like that, but there were always kind of like, it always felt like there were kind of like eyes on you. So you kind of knew when to be what way at what times. So I would say that was the negative part, but the other stuff, as far as like helping in the community and like, just having like a set structured schedule and like times in the week where I wasn't studying, I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything, that really helped. But, when I took it out of my life, it no longer helped. So, and things declined slowly, but I eventually just burned the heck out. So that's one thing that I do find interesting. And I know a lot of Jewish people do keep the Sabbath, and a lot of Jewish people keep more, of the biblical laws that are not the Sabbath only, but in addition, they keep so many more. I think there's 613 commandments in the Old Testament. And so if that's the number, I mean, if you're keeping 613 commandments plus from like, I guess the Mishnah or whatever kind of like other, scriptures or reading and things, it's just, that's a lot. But there's also, for some people, it seems like there's a joy in it. And, David Lapin's book talks about, not necessarily the joy in that, but like in commandments and things, but that the Bible in Judaism is seen more like an instruction manual of how to live life, in one of the best ways, or different things like that. He has some ideas about contentment versus happiness, and he was saying that his mother taught him that happiness is an obligation that he has to himself, and it's something you can kind of control in a lot of ways for a lot of people, unless you have like other conditions that make you feel like you can't control it. But it's like a lot of things are like mindset, right? And so he was saying it can be dangerous to feel content. A lot of us say content, like I'm just saying this is what he was saying. I don't really know what I think, because this is my first time hearing this, but about contentment, that feeling content means that you almost don't have any drive or motivation toward like learning more or doing more, or not necessarily with like commandments, but like in life, like I was talking about the creativity and how I get a lot of motivation from creativity. Even if it's not at work, I can be creative in other areas like podcasting or other things after work, or, the pictures I post when I go hiking after work or something like that, like, or beach days after work or whatever, weekends at the beach or whatever, like snowboarding, whatever. I can take pictures and, post them and like, do creative stuff, make little video clips and then like put them together and send them to people. And, when I take little trips and stuff and like especially snowboarding, I think people like those videos for some reason. But it's stuff like that. I'm kind of passionate about it. I like to share it. I like to make reviews about stuff. I want to share it, even if it's like way after I did the review. But there are things like that where I'm just like, okay. I want to like, be able to, interact with certain people or, talk to certain people, in a way that, can connect with them. But, sometimes I feel like I'm not, I just do my own thing, right? So like there are a lot of things that I noticed there aren't a lot of people that look like me that do them. Snowboarding is one of them. I don't think I even have any black female friends that snowboard. And this is from a person that was like raised in LA. It's like, it's not like there aren't any black people there. Yeah, even when I go to the mountains, even when I search on YouTube, there really aren't that many like black female snowboarders. There aren't really a lot of black people on the slopes in general. And it's kind of interesting that the closest one to, LA is, I think it's technically in LA County too, because that side of Wrightwood is in LA County. But I think that one is, yeah, there still aren't a lot of black people that go there. But yeah, and even less. I mean, I went to New Mexico. I don't remember seeing any black people there. Maybe one or two. I don't even remember. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but it's just like, sometimes it's hard for me to know if I'm really like relating to people or not, because I have different interests. And it just confuses people. People are like, oh, I didn't know you're into that. And then it's just like weird because I'm like the one. So it's like, and then I'm like with people trying to like relate to people like me that they don't really interact with people like me. So it's kind of like, okay. But I mean, I'm so used to it that it's not a problem. It's just something interesting that I get to deal with. And I live in a very diverse area, so it's kind of just an interesting thing, that I do notice. But I like just creativity in general, being passionate about things, being driven about stuff. And it can be hard to just like pull myself up to get motivated. And especially like I mentioned, like, I do have a lot of fear surrounding like maybe screwing something up or not doing something well, or starting and everything feels like it's going good till it's not. And then just kind of getting knocked down again. So that kind of gets in the way of my motivation a lot, because I do tend to get really like hyped up about stuff. Like I can give you a simple example. It's easy for me to, get a domain name, make a website, make a blog, make a this, make a that, like it's easy for me to do all that stuff. But the second I start trying to do more like SEO and the editing and then the digital marketing aspect of things and like paying for ads and all that, there's always like the last steps that I just kind of don't follow through with easily. All the rest of the creative process is like, yes, let's create, let's make more, let's think about this, let's process this, let's see, the creation that I've made, and like, this is my baby, and like, and then just like leave it there. So I'll have good ideas and things that I'm passionate about, but then it's like I notice there can be either a lack of follow through or like limited follow through. It's like, I tried that once, it didn't work, I really don't know if I want to try again. And there's always that kind of thing lately that I didn't have that before. I just kind of would plow through things, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. Let me try it again. There was like zero emotional attachment, not zero, but like not as much of an emotional attachment to working hard and things not working out. That is something that is newer for me to have to unfortunately battle. And I think it keeps me a lot of times just kind of stuck at one spot where I'm like, okay, I can move forward because I see it and I know how to do it. It's not like I don't know the knowledge. Like, so I notice a lot of times I am my own freaking hang up, and that can keep me not motivated, because then it's like, well, what's the point in creating a bunch of projects if you never really fully release them, or never really fully do them, or never really fully polish them up and like make them nice and neat and, promote it somewhere, or like, what's the point, what's the point in buying stuff to resell if you just never post it online, and then you have this junk and you end up like going out of your way to like return it. It's kind of like, okay, you could have posted it, you could have seen what happened, you could have played with the market a bit and like seen what's kind of fancy out there, or what people are going for out there, and like figure out some info about the algorithms and like test stuff, and just have fun in the statistical process of it all. But for me, the execution gets a little bit difficult. So that is definitely an issue, especially if it's like I'm doing stuff that I would want to scale up. I'm doing stuff that I would want to like improve on, and doing stuff that I want to kind of like keep trying, but I can't really keep doing and trying those things if I can't really keep doing and trying those things. Like, so yeah, I don't even really know, but yeah, I wouldn't really be able to keep on like with kind of trying, keeping on trying. And so like, yeah, sorry, that was weird. Some weird person just like walked past me. Like, I saw them like walk out of their house, and then they just like walked past me and kind of made some weird remark. Like, so I don't know. It's dark now, so I don't know, maybe because my light's on, but I don't know what that was all about. But anyways, it just kind of threw me off in the middle of when I was saying something. But yeah, it's just a lot. So I mean, I'm not trying to like make things sound like depressing or whatever, but it's like, yeah, it seems like it's a simple thing, but when you can identify what it is, and you know what it is, and you're aware of what's going on and what's going wrong, then it's like, okay, now I can fix it. It's like, I know, like, yeah, like, there's the emotional aspect to it as well. But then, I get to a point where I'm like recently, I'm kind of more at a point where I'm like more motivated and kind of just sick of the hangups. That's kind of where my head is now. And that's why I was kind of like, let's talk about motivation, because it's been a while up until more recently when I've been like conditioning for the end of snowboard season. So I haven't really been doing that until very recently. But now that I kind of am, it's kind of making life like a little bit easier, and a little bit more kind of, yeah, just easier, and just a little bit more like, what would you say? Okay, so he was just going down the street to get his kid at probably one of the friends' houses or something. Anyways, but yeah, so I don't even know what I was saying. Sorry. But yeah, just the motivation aspect is just, is challenging. And so, I'm kind of having a little more epiphanies about things. And so, I do like to discuss it if I feel like there's something of value that comes to my mind. But, I know Dave Ramsey always says, like, wait till you're sick and tired of being, like, he's always asking people, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? And that's when they start doing better with their personal finances, because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, you know, eventually kind of hit that point. And I think, yeah, in David Lapin's book, he was also talking about, and I'll end at this point, but he was also talking about how, he talked about a lot of things, but like how people need, what was it? I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say, but one other topic that he talks about is, he does talk about creativity. He does talk about, how to kind of, set, like, I like the mindset type of information, just about like how to, look at things and how things can turn from being a hard time to improvement. And there are a lot of toy makers after World War II, a lot of Jewish people. He gave a bunch of examples of different people who were in different ghettos or in different concentration camps that came to the US or wherever they were at in the world after that. When they survived, they made good businesses for themselves and things. And he was talking about the difference between that versus a person that might be homeless, or unable to support themselves adequately, and just the complexities with it, because there's so many complexities to it. But he was just talking about some of the layers, some of them, because I know there's so many different things that contribute. But I really just liked the book, honestly. I'm in chapter 7, but I think it's like 10 I think it's about 10 different ideas, and the second chapter was the first idea, I guess. So I've got 9 hours left to listen to it, but on Audible. But all right, guys, that's it for tonight. I'm done.